Welcome to this episode of Moving Forward Talk with Diana. I am your host, Dr. Diana Clark. This week we have Dr. Maxine Wilson joining us to discuss the topic change. This platform is open to discuss various topics with the goal to motivate others to shape their future without limitations. And I must say, this has been a journey to do this video. This is our third time. Third time is a charm, so hopefully we'll get through it this time. Dr. Wilson, it's a pleasure to have you. And of course, thanks for your patience.
Thanks for having me, for sharing your platform.
Yes. Well, before we get into it, tell me about Dr. Wilson.
Well, let's start a little bit about the professional's life. I have been in legal setting for more than 20 years. I guess I enjoy that side of life probably because of the great opportunity for learning and for helping and for doing. I see myself as a strategist because not so much for learning, but or for academia, because of the fact that in everything that I do full circle, I've been a community activist. I have been what they would call a community leader. I've dabbled some in politics. I have been an agent for change in a lot of different arenas. And so in those arenas, I have used different platforms to effect change. In community, it's about change for sustainability and services, and at work, it's about change for processes and all of that. So when you put all that together, it's a learning opportunity. On the personal side, I'm a wife, a mother, a grandmother. I consider that to be a part of my legacy. And I love being a grandma. During my little break, I decided to go chat with my granddaughter on FaceTime, and she was just telling me all the stuff she was doing. So those are my rejuvenation points. And so I've seen change in a lot of different ways. I've experienced change in my life on my journey, but I've also seen change happen in some of the projects and programs and people that I have worked with. So it's my pleasure today to discuss a little bit about change with you.
Thank you. And being an agent of change, you are no stranger to change. One of the things is, a lot of us, we know it's a small word to us, change. What is change?
Well, the thing about change is it happens around us every day. It happens around us in different stages of our life. Change is about movement. It's about growth. It's about, creating certainty when there is uncertainty. And by that, I mean, when things are not, it's like cooking, and you start with one meal in mind and you realize you're short a few ingredients and stuff, and then you decide to make something else. That in of itself is change. And some change that we go through is mindless because we don't think about it. If you think about culture and you think about technology and the different eras we've been through, from clothes to fashion, we go through those seamlessly, and we adjust and we adapt without giving much thought to it. And so change is about, and change in of itself is, you can change location, you can change jobs, you can change direction, you can get lost and get turned around. That's considered change. So change is a movement from what was to what is and to what will be. In essence, that's what change is.
Great. When I look at change in a nutshell, I just say change is the willingness to get out of my comfort zone and keep moving. Great. Right. Great meaning of change. Now, you mentioned something, the mindless change. It is so easy to adapt to the mindless change, but once we become aware of a change that we must make, then we become resistant. Speak on the resistance of change.
Well, the resistance to change in of itself is fear. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes when we're doing it, we don't think of it as fear. Some of us say, well, I want to make sure that I have a safety net. Fear. The resistance to change in terms of fear is about we're creatures of habit, and we have created routines, and we have become accustomed to what is safe and where our comfort zone is. Change require you to get out of that. Can change require you to take risk? Change requires you to give up what is safe and known for what is unknown. It requires you to take steps and movements into directions that you've never been, never thought of. And a lot of us don't want to give up that comfort zone. We don't want to give up that security, that safety, that predictability. And most importantly, with change, it equates to a loss of control. We like to be in control. We like to know that we're going to go out there and we're going to do ABC, and this is how it's going to be. And it's about control for us. It's about that autonomy that says, this is safety for me. This is where I'm comfortable. This is where I've created a routine. This is where I can pretty much get through my day without even thinking. Now you're asking me to give that up, to relearn. And the most important part of it is that a lot of people view change as new, something new. It's like having to relearn something, to do something. The resistance to change is also about the excessiveness of uncertainty.
Mhm.
We like what we can predict. We kind of have this nosy tendency about us. We want to know what exactly going to happen next. We want to know how it's going to happen, who's going to do it. And when you're changing, those things are fluid. They're not set, because that's why you're giving up what's set to be able to move to the next phase. And then the other thing about change also is the fact that we don't want to take risk. A lot of us are scared of risk. And they will tell you, this is the way it's always been done. This is how my mama did it. This is how my grandmother did it. This is how I know how to do it. And so when you have to, we have a tendency when it comes to change and we become crippled, we do that because of the fact that we make some really good arguments to ourselves about why we shouldn't change, about what is going well for us and what it means to move out of that comfort zone. I recall having opportunities laid out in front of me. I recall being in a position that I knew wasn't going the direction it should be going, wasn't going where I needed it to be. I knew that I was at that stage where I had hit the limit of where I could go, and now I need to take a different direction. But having 3 opportunities sitting in front of me, I created such a panic, anxiety. I literally had sleepless nights because I'm trying to convince myself that there's no reason for me to make this change, because now I'm going to have to start over. I have this certain salary. What if, I have this security here? What if when I go there, it don't work out? And I've convinced myself of everything until it got to that point where I ran out of arguments. And now I had to, get out of all those, pre-contemplation. I'm not ready. I need change. Then I get into the contemplation of, maybe I could use some change, but I don't know. And I talk myself again. So I had to get into that preparation stage where I had to set goals and look at the pros and the cons and ask myself, what am I giving up here? What do I stand to gain? And make my decision from that point on. But change is crippling. And, there's a thing that we don't think about, that for some people, change is a phobia. And in fact, it's a methothesiophobia. And that phobia is linked to what they call a tropophobia, and that's the fear of moving.
Mhm.
So change requires you to move. Sometimes it's not a physical move, but it requires you to move. So if your needle is at halfway, you need to move to the 3/4. You need to move to the full. And that fear cripples some people to the point where anxiety set in, panic set in, because they can't get out of that zone. that comfort zone. And I think that's the biggest part of what fear and change represent, is that change require you to change, to move from something that you're comfortable with, that you have created autonomy over, that you are safe with, and now it's asking you to step outside of that. And that's why some people become so crippled. The other thing that people that cripple people with fear is that even though you're doing something for probably 10, 15, 20 years, and now you have to step it up to the next notch, you question your competence. You question your competence because you're saying, what if I can't do it? What if I don't get it right? What would happen if I, go there and they don't like me doing this, and I can't make, I can't convince them. And so we talk ourselves out of things because we question our competence. But there's another external factor that paralyzes us, is that when we get to that place where we start to think about, okay, now I've contemplated that I didn't. Now I say, okay, I need, and I'm going to do it. And I feel comfortable that I'm going to take the step. I'm going to share with somebody. And when you look at that, you understand why, some of the very wise people around us have often said to us, when you're doing something, get it almost to the finish line before you share it. Because, they always say, well, not everybody is happy for you. Well, I think other people project their fear onto you by asking, well, why do you want to do that? What if? Mm-hmm. Don't you already have this going on? You already have a job. Why you need another job? You already have this and that. Why you need to do that? You need to just be comfortable where you're at and focus. And so that kind of external negative influence convince you that you don't need to make the change. And so that's another excuse that you absorb. And even if you had already made up your mind 9/10 of the way that you were going to do it, now you take 2 steps back because somebody reaffirmed whatever your fears already were about not doing it.
Great. So now that we mastered the pre-contemplation, and then we get to the preparation, and I find even myself, and that is where I came up with this topic, laying on my air mattress, looking around to my new environment of the change that I made. And I said, oh, so I need someone to discuss this topic with me. But what I see, when we get to the preparation, we analyze the change that we must need to execute. We analyze what we need to execute that change. And we execute that change, but then we become stagnant. We know the purpose, we analyze the purpose, we made a preparation, but then we become stagnant.
Well, I think in that phase, you have to ask yourself, whose permission are you needing? Mm-hmm. And whose life are you living?
Right.
Because we know what we need to do. Mm-hmm. But again, it's another form of fear of change. So we become creatures of comfort where, okay, you're looking around and you're going, in my other place, I have all the things, I have this and this and this. Mm-hmm. You already created a space that is everything to your comfort. Now you're looking at it as, I'm going to have to do it again.
Right.
And look what I'm leaving, and look what I'm doing again. And so we limit our opportunities by our history. Mm-hmm. And what we have and what we've become comfortable with. In making a plan, and what I find to have worked for me a lot is that I do what they call vision boards. And my vision board is a little bit different because some people put pictures up there and say, these are all the things I want to do. I create my vision board with a little bit of more accountability in it. Mm-hmm. So I put priority, but I put deadline and action items. So when I decided I wanted to get away from, this great salary, job security, I thought, and I wanted to look at consulting, I've had many opportunities, and I said, yeah, but I have a paycheck that comes in, and I have this, and I start to look at all the other things that I have and all of that. So in creating my plan, which is my vision board, I now decided, okay, this is where I'm at. These are the things that I have to maintain for now, my transitional maintenance. But these are the things I need to get to. And I said, okay, well, what do I need to do? Academically, I've already taken care of that. So I decided at that point, I was like, okay, so I need to increase my board participation, get some board things under my belt. I need to look at, more speaking engagements, getting people to know who I am, getting people to understand what I have. And I put time limits to them so that I am accountable. Doesn't mean you don't get cold feet, but when you're looking at that time that's coming up and you're saying, wow. And so I create, as part of my plan, transitional period. I am here in my comfort zone. This is where I'm trying to get to. And this is my transition period. And these are the items that I need to get to here. So basically, to make change a little easier and to remove a lot of the uncertainty is to be able to have a solid plan. Now, there are some people who make plans and they talk about the plans and it sounds good and they get satisfaction from talking about it. So they never have to literally make the change because mentally they've already achieved it in their heads. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the ways that we comfort ourselves to stay in that, between planning and action. We talk about it. We say, well, we've done it. Oh, and this is what I'm going to do. And this is how we have these elaborate plans, but we've never acted on them. We have to make goals that are realistic, add time to them. Mm-hmm. We have to focus on it. And one of the things that I know so much about is consistency. We have to stay consistent. If you say I have a plan and then, some people, they say, well, this job is getting on I need to transition into something else. I need to go into my own business. Okay, but what's your plan? Every week they will tell you something different. And so change is not going to happen because you don't have a focused goal. You have to have a focused goal. You have to look at the benefits of it. And you have to say with those benefits, this is what I want, and this is how I'm going to get it. So it's like a roadmap. You have to create a roadmap. Instant change is difficult. If you think about it, if you say, you know what, I have to lose weight. And for me to lose weight, I have to do A, B, C, D. Quite often, we get into the action. We can't maintain it because we don't go past 6 months. As we see the first set of results, we go back. It is one of the reasons why people make resolutions at the beginning of the year, but change never really happened. Because it sounds good to make, you get to that pivot point, it sounds good to make it. And we get past, that pre-contemplation, the contemplation, we get to the action because we do the preparation, because we make the preparation, go shopping, you buy all this different stuff that you're going to eat, and you start the action, but you can't maintain it because you're not staying solely focused. And then you say, well, change didn't happen for me. It's just a whole bunch of, it's the consistency and the focus.
Right.
Having a clear plan. And it's knowing, you don't need any other permission but yours to do it. Because think about it, same vein of a diet. If you go to the doctor and the doctor says, if you continue eating this way, you're going to be dead within 6 months. You wouldn't think that the fear of change then diminishes under the weight of the fear of death. Mm-hmm. So you will make a plan and you will stick to it for the most part, and you will stay focused on it.
Right.
It's all about incentives. When you're making your plan, you have to see clear ways. You have to be realistic. A lot of us make plans that we cannot maintain because we're not realistic. You have to put time to your plans. You have to give it that time frame. And you have to give yourself permission to get over whatever it is that holds you back. Because here's the thing. one of the things that happen is that fear of change don't just come overnight. Fear of change often is triggered by something that happened throughout your life. If you are a child who grew up in an environment where you were constantly moving and starting over, and you have to keep doing this every time and relive the experience every time, you become an adult who don't want change. If you have parents who abandon you along the way and you don't, you become an adult who now fear change every time. So there are scars that you will earn in your lifetime that will become the factor of fear. But there's also a training and a learning that comes with that. A lot of parents parent by fear, and in that, don't do that, because if you do that, this is going to happen and that is going to happen. And it's never positive reinforcement. Right. It's always something negative. If you take this action, this is the negative that's going to happen. So we become conditioned to where we say, oh, well, I can't make a change because this is going good. And if I do that, something bad is going to happen. We never look at the other side of it to say something good will happen or what the benefits of the change is going to be, and to work through that. So planning for change is more than just saying, I'm going to do ABC and move forward to it. There's a lot more that going to, because you have to emotionally condition yourself for that change. You have to then turn around and look at how you're going to map the course. And then you have to become informed and educated towards whatever it is you're striving for change towards.
Great. And you mentioned it, but a question that I had was, do you think our upbringing influence how we see change?
Yes, it does.
Right.
If you grew up with a parent who, and think about this, and we come out of a culture where we see this a lot. Some families believe that jobs and professions are inherited. Well, your daddy had this job for 30 years and you're going to get that same job, and then you're going to have that job and you will, and somebody predestined your life for you and condition you towards that predestination. That job may not be the right one for you, but you're going to stay in it because that's what your daddy did. That's where he retired from. And then you can hear the arguments of, that's what put me through school. That's what kept a roof over my head. And you're going to stay in that vein. So anything of change is going to look different. We also have negative conditioning when you're growing up. How many people have ever heard their parents say, you ain't never going to be anything. You're not going to grow up to become anything. And some people say, well, people used to have this little thing where we said sticks and stones break your bones, right. Words never hurt you. That is not true.
Not true.
Sticks and stones will break your bones and they will heal and the pain will go away. But the scar from words stay a lifetime. Those scar from words stay a lifetime. And those words create that negative influence in your life, that you fear anything outside of that conditioning that you get. So yes, depending on what your life experience have been, depending on how things have been for you, if you grew up in comfort and you inherited comfort, you don't want change. If everything was ever handed to you, and then suddenly you find yourself in a situation where you now have to fend for yourself, you don't want that change. So change do follow and do influence you along the way from childhood into adulthood. And even as adults, a death, something, depending on whatever the situation is and how it is framed, can impact how you view change.
Right. Now speak on reevaluating your purpose, the purpose for your change, in terms of we're at the maintenance stage of change. And some of us, it becomes it is very critical at that stage, because sometimes at that stage it can either, as they say, make you or break you, because you're looking at the challenges. You're looking at the challenge of probably looking, it seems as though you're failing because it is not happening the way you actually thought it would. So think about reevaluating the purpose of your change instead of quitting.
Well, you always have to challenge your assumptions.
Mhm.
And in challenging your assumptions, you have to go back to the drawing board a lot of times. That's where it becomes change within change.
Right.
I'm trying to start a business, and I get to the point of where I've taken the action. Now I'm in the maintenance stage. What were your expectations and your assumptions going into that? If you go in thinking that it was going to be an overnight success, you probably will fail because you're looking for instant gratification. If you challenge your assumption and say, you know what, in my planning process, I realized that this was going to be a 5-year plan before I even start to see returns, and I plan accordingly, then you're a little more long-term thinker than the here and now. So that will help in challenging your assumptions. But you also have to become a possibility thinker in doing that, because nothing you start out is going to go exactly how you plan it. You might be thinking the road from point A to point B is going to be a one straight road, but as you're going there, you start to see the turns and the curves and the winds and the valleys and all those different things. The question is, are you equipped at that point to be able to become a possibility thinker and say, okay, today this is happening, but let me step back for a moment and see, what do I need to do to get past this and go into the next 6 months? And when I get there, if this happened, what do I need to get to the next 6 months? And sometimes with change, you need a support system. But you need a support system made up of positive people. And what you will learn along the way as you go through your journey is that you can't take everybody with you. That's another thing. Your change is about you.
Mhm.
While you're making that change, you can't bring everybody with you. You kind of have to make your change, get to that point where you can reach back and say, okay, here I am now. I've cleared this hurdle. I can do this with you. Too many times we have this herd mentality where we want everybody to go together with us. And sometimes we get to the point where that change is for me and I need to work on that change, but we become concerned about who is going to be upset, who's going to be mad, who's going to be happy for me, and when you're making that change, sometimes it's a lonely road. But for me, in making change, I've realized that there are people who come in my life for different reasons. Some come as lessons, some come as blessings. Some of them come to restore, and some do come to destroy.
Right.
Having that kind of insight into who is who, and not have your judgment clouded by what everybody else, what you see around you, and taking it personal. I had a project that lasted 14 years. I didn't walk into it asking for it. I asked for some change. I got the change, but along with the change, I bargained and I said to God, you give me this, I'm yours. You use me for whatever you want me to be. And the challenge came. And along the way, I start to realize that some people who were on this journey with me was because of what they could have had, was because of the possibility of what I represented. And quickly I learned not everyone was going to be my friend. Not everyone was going to be happy for me. And I learned that at some stages during this journey, I was going to have to walk alone. It was a lot of trial and error getting to that point, but I got there because I was focused on the change that I wanted. As I mentioned at the top, I've done a lot of community activism work, and I've taken on change in a lot of ways. Change for better for my community, change for improvement, change for all of that. And every stage that you will go, you will find that sometimes the people that you think were the best people for whatever had your back before, as you grow, doesn't necessarily mean they're going to grow with you. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're always going to see your point of view or have your back. So in the journey of change and maintenance, you have to make some tough decisions as to who can I carry with me? What can I carry with me? Who can't I carry with me? And your thinking have to start changing from the mindset of it's a we to it's a me.
Right.
Because the journey you're on, even though you might be trying to carry people with you, it's not their journey, it's yours. And the change that you're going through, I like to call it a metamorphosis. And you're going through this change where you're coming through your cocoon, you know, and in that process of being that caterpillar, eventually you want to be that butterfly to fly. But you can't carry anybody with you. It's only big enough for you at that point. And when you get to where you're at, you can probably reach back and help. And you'll hear a lot of noise along the way. But in maintenance, it's often because we don't get past certain things because we weren't prepared for the hurdles and we didn't look far enough. You know, there's a lot of times, and I remember all the time, my husband always said to me when I'm driving, the key is looking ahead. Because I always say, why you did that? And he's like, the key is always looking ahead, far up ahead of you so you can see everything. That's something you apply to your process of change. The key is to look ahead. And whatever the uncertainties are that kept us in our fear of change, you have to find a way to eliminate those uncertainties by creating a plan that has an A, B, C, D, if you have to go through the whole alphabet, because sometimes that's what your change require. We only see what's exactly in front of us. We have to train ourselves to see beyond that. And we have to say, if everything could go wrong, it's gonna go wrong now. And if it does, what do I do? And so the process of change never ends. It's always another process of change. Even when you get to the maintenance stage, you're still changing because you as a person doesn't stay constant, whether you know it or not. You go through life cycles. You go through different phases of your life. You go through different emotions. You go through different wants, different needs. And those are changes that's going to demand, those are internal changes that's going to demand external changes. And so you have to look beyond today. You have to look beyond tomorrow. And that's why when you go to the bank and you say, I need a loan, what they ask you? What's your 5-year plan?
Right.
Give me your financials, give me this, give me that, give me what, because they want you to think it through. That's why you have a business plan. If you have a business plan for your business, you need to have one for your life too, a personal plan. So that you can't control everything, but the ability to have a plan and have a contingent plan help you to navigate terrains.
Awesome. Now, sometimes we struggle with that change, I believe, because we think we're ready, but we're actually not ready. We can say it clearly, I'm ready for this change, but in all actuality, we are not ready. Now, what are some tools or some factors can contribute to the readiness for that change?
I always say, but you have to have a higher purpose. You have to have a higher purpose. And I say that because a lot of times we are making changes based on somebody else's blueprint. Often we're making changes because, you know, you ever hear people say, oh, this is the latest fad. Everybody is doing this thing where they're making money and she's making money and I should try it too.
Yes.
We have to learn to figure out our lane and stay in our lane. We have to, and some people say, well, it's not envy. No, it may not be envy. It's lazy thinking. You don't want to put the work in to make the change that's necessary for you to achieve what you need to achieve. It seems much easier because one of the things we look from the outside and we look in and we see people are doing something. What we see is what people allow us to see. What we don't see is the tears, the pain, the hurt, the empty bank account, the brokenness. We don't see all the things. You know, it's like someone share a meal with you, but what you didn't see was all the ingredients that went into the meal. So people let you see what it is they want you to see. And then you decide, well, if that's working for them, that's going to work for me. When you have a higher purpose, and it took me a while to figure out, and I kept doing a lot of different things, but one thing I found out was always consistent was, and that I was good at, and that I got some awards, but that I got constant pat on the back because I saw results, was the fact that I was a great advocate. Mm-hmm. And so in my searching for a higher purpose, I realized that even without trying, it came naturally for me to advocate, whether it's for myself, whether it's for somebody else, it's for a whole community. So eventually, going through years and years of refining and looking at other things and asking other things, I always find my way back to being an advocate. So I believe my higher purpose is advocacy. Now, for me, advocacy is not so much about always speaking for somebody, but advocacy is about supporting somebody. It's about motivating somebody. It's helping that person to get to the next level of where they want to go. When you're going through change, you have to find that advocate, that support for you, that confidant, that person who is going to help you pick yourself up and dust you off, that person who's going to hold you accountable, your accountability partner who's going to say, no, you ain't come this far to stop. No, come on, get going, keep moving, let's go. That's one of the main things we need to do. When you have your higher purpose, you have that accountability partner that keeps you there because you know where you're going. The other thing you have to do is become relentlessly focused. Put your blinders on. Someone told me during my journey of community work, and I used to get upset because people used to come with other things, and they reminded me, they said, you know, that's like a pyromaniac. Mm-hmm. They start all these little fires to take your focus away from your main goal, from the big fire. And you have to learn how to put the blinders on and look past those little flat fires and keep going where you need to get to. So you have to become relentlessly focused. The bigger thing is you have to stay aware of your thoughts and the things that cripple and limit your change. Your thoughts are the worst that could ever happen sometimes. You get that little notion in your mind, and before you know it, however you're thinking it or however you do it, it becomes this big blockade at that point. It starts with your thought. It started in your mind, but somehow your mind have convinced you that now this is the mountain that you must climb. And you know, if you step back sometime and look at it, you can see that it was all in your mind. You know, sometimes you need something and you get so worked up about it, and okay, I'm gonna go in there and I'm gonna tell them this and I'm getting upset, but you already felt defeated because you're saying, it's not gonna happen, they ain't gonna think about me. And you walk in there and say to your boss or somebody and say, you know, this has been going on and I feel, okay, that's what you want, no problem. But you already create stress and tension, send up your blood pressure because your mind convinced you, because you let those thoughts come in. You wanna stay positive. The other things we do, we use self-defeating words to ourselves. Girl, you ain't never gonna do that. Nah. What was I thinking? I don't know how to do that. This is not even for me. I don't think I can overcome that.
Transparency. I did that to myself last night.
Self-defeating word. You have to stop using self-defeating words. You know, you have to keep trying and convince yourself. You have to be your biggest cheerleader. Mm-hmm. You have to say, you can do this. I can do it. In my mind, I'm a giant. I can do everything. Because they always say there's nothing that beat a trial but a failure. And if you allow your self-defeating words to convince you not to do something, you've already lost.
You've already lost. Yeah.
You have to, you know, sometimes if you look, you see people say, well, I write messages to myself, put on the mirror, I do this. I write daily. I journal daily. I journal daily as part of my devotion. I support a small business who do journals, and, you know, she have a new one coming out called Conversations with God. And it's partially because the first one came out and we started talking about how we use it. I use it with my journal, with my devotion, and I talk to God each day, writing it down. I could write a whole study at this point, but those are my personal thoughts. Me and God have conversations. And you have to find ways to reaffirm yourself. You have to be your biggest cheerleader no matter what happened. You have to be intentional. In everything you do, you have to be intentional. You can't leave anything up to chance. You just have to be intentional. You know, sometimes we go to God and we ask for things, and then when he give it to us because it didn't come the way we expect it to come, we just give up. It's right there in front of us. He gave it to us, but he didn't wrap it in a nice big wrapper and put bowls on it and give it to you. But you can't see it because you have an intention of what it should look like. And you start to try to say, well, I asked God for this. He didn't give me that. He gave it to you. You're just not intentional enough to see it. And you have to eliminate naysayers and negative. We already, we talked about that a little bit. If you're your biggest cheerleader and you're cheering yourself on, you have to tune out the noise.
Right.
You have to drown out the noise. Naysayers struggle with their own fears, their own fear of change, their own fear of everything. Naysayers have their own issues. You can only take on one set of issues at a time, and it's yours. So now you're staying focused because you've made a decision to have change. You put the work in for change. You need to maintain that momentum. And in order to maintain that momentum, you have to keep everything out of it. For me, I read a ton of articles every day. Not because I'm required to, not because I love school more than anybody else, but because for me, it's a constant journey for me to improve myself. Earlier this summer, during the pandemic, my job had a restructuring. And they took my comfort zone away from me without even asking. They just decided, well, you're not going to do that anymore. That job I was doing, by the time they got done with it, they gave it to 4 people to do the job I was doing. But they gave me something else. And at first I panicked and I hesitated. But I sat there and I said, well, I've been talking to God about this for a while. I needed a change. I needed a change because I felt pigeonholed in that, and I'd acquired new skills. I had a new PhD and I just felt like I wasn't growing.
Right.
God brought me the growth that I needed, but I couldn't see it because I was focused on another direction I wanted to go. So I decided, convince myself, well, maybe, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know about competency. Now I'm starting to go back into the old ways of, I was prepared to move forward. I have all this plan, but it was my plan, how I wanted to do it. But, when I sit back and assess what was going on, I pulled some books, research, all that stuff, and I started to go through it. And I thought about it and I said, on the onset of the pandemic, what I did was I started to look at possibilities for another avenue for growth should my company not recover or something should happen. Everybody was laying people off, everybody was cutting people, and I'm being proactive because I have a plan. I have this consulting practice I've been putting on the back burner, and I'm going to dust it off now. But the one thing that I got stuck on was the fact that the consulting practice I was focused on was a consulting of what I had become known at and good at, and that I was giving services away for free. Now I was going to formalize it. But there was one little thing. There would have been a conflict with my current position that I had. In my panic of them moving my position from me and splitting it up across 4 people, what I failed to have seen at that point was how the door just opened for what I had been asking God for and what I was preparing for. It removed the conflict that I had, that I could now focus on my consulting practice, because the job I now have didn't look anything remotely like the position I used to have. And so I was forced into change, but I adapted to the change and saw the benefits of adapting to that change. And so where now that I've been doing this new role with more responsibilities for a while, I love it more than I love the last role that I had.
And that does take it back to the purpose of the change.
The purpose of the change. You have to focus on what is the purpose of the change. You know, one of the other things you have to do in that maintenance phase is to expect discomfort, plan for it, and welcome it.
Right.
My change wasn't by choice. I said I wanted it. I asked for it. But then when I got it, I think I was more hung up on the fact that they needed 4 people to do one job that I used to do. I'm like, wow. But I saw the purpose for the change, and I do expect a discomfort because for me, it's a new role. I've been doing the last one for 5 years, and I got suddenly thrust into a new role. And I know I'm capable. I know I'm qualified, but there are some discomforts because I know I'm entrusted with a large project to last about 3 years. Mm-hmm. And I know they're expecting great results from it. And there are some discomforts that come with it for little things that are around it, but I'm planning for it. I went out and got all the material I need to make my plan outside of the company plan so that I can plan for it. And I'm still planning for my transition plan. I like to call it, you know, a lot of people say, well, you had a good job while you did a PhD. That's my retirement plan.
Right. Right.
You know, it's like cooking the meal. Now I got all the ingredients. My food is simmering. And at the end of it, you know, that's my retirement plan because I can do a whole lot. When I leave active workforce, I can consult, I can teach, I can build, I can motivate. There's a lot I can do. But in order for that to have the value and the effect that I need it to have, I have to know work in my transitional phase, being good at what I do so I can create that credibility that is necessary for my retirement plan. So we have to expect the discomfort, plan for it, welcome it, and we got to form new habits. See, the thing about change and comfort zone is old habits that became routine. Now we have to form and adopt new habits consistent with where we are and who we have become, so that the change that we went through, now we're in the maintenance phase and we're keeping it past that 6-month phase. Now we're making it till we get to the next pivot point, but it will be planned change. My next pivot point is retirement when I move into my next retirement from active professional world for somebody else and move into my own pivot point. And I'm planning that now because I'm calling this my transitional phase. So we have to do all of those things and we have to put them together and make it the motivating factor for us. Doubts creep in, things happen, but we have, if we're, and I'm not talking about being narcissistic. There's a difference between being confident and being conceited. We have to be confident in who we are. And with your higher purpose, you have a sense of who you're created to be. And we have to be confident in whose we are to know that we're going to keep going even when the discomfort comes, when the thoughts creep in, so you have to build that support system. You have to have that self-sustaining system, but you have to have that external support system, but you always have to be confident in who you are and where you're going in order for you to make that journey sure-footed.
Great. And piggybacking something you said, you know, as I discuss my moving forward with my employment with my son who's 13, and he said, why would you, he named everything that I was naming as the pros on my current, you know, my previous job. Why would you do that? It's going to take the move. And I explained to him, this is my transition over into my retirement, because what I want to do after retiring, hopefully in 5 to 10 years, no more than 5, Lord, hopefully in 5 to 10 years, what my plans are, this transition phase would be very beneficial. And even though he looked at me, he said, you're almost 50. He said, "You're almost 50. Why chase something else?" And I said that to say we have to understand, because at his age, he really don't understand when I say, I'm transitioning into my retirement, because what I wanted to after retiring from the workforce, this position that I'm walking into would be a great support system. So I say that just to reiterate how important it is when we're seeking that change, how important it is for us to know the benefit of the change. Now, a question that I was asked, what I was asked to ask, what if one disagree with their own personal change? Or is there such a thing as being in disagreement with your own personal change?
Well, if you're in disagreement with your own personal change, it's probably because you still haven't seen the big picture.
Right.
See, sometimes the thing with change is we will question it the whole way, but we'll do it. We'll make the change because we're questioning it because of the limitations we have as people, and what we're seeing around us, and the discomfort that comes with it, and all that stuff. And it's still a little bit of a fear that factor in, because until you have become settled into that change, you're still having questions. And questions are not necessarily bad, because what question does, it help you to look at where the weaknesses are in your plan. And that's the thing about change. If you're halfway in change and the path you're on doesn't seem like it's going where you're going, change allow you to pivot again.
Right.
Because the thing is, something that you get good at, really good at, is something that you do over and over and over again. Become good at change when you're able to make good decisions for change. Just because you, at the time when you make that decision for change, the factors lined up a certain way, doesn't mean that halfway in, you're not going to realize that some things you misread, or some of the factors that were there then are not there anymore, and you have to adjust. There is no static plan. The thing about change, it's constantly moving, because like I said, change happens around us every day, and we don't even feel it. I mean, there was a time when we used to go to that old typewriter and
Right.
pluck away at it, and everybody said, "Oh, technology coming. I don't know. Some people ain't going to do it." I see everybody on computers now. Everybody getting it, everybody doing it. And I see my 3-year-old and all of them can operate these things better than me. So we go through every era of our lives with different changes, and we adjust to them whether we like them or not. And, it's a fitting question at the point where here we are in the middle of a pandemic. And chaos ensues because so much change is suddenly thrusted on us. And it's thrusted, a lot of people say, well, the safest way is to wear a mask. And a lot of people say, oh, I'm not wearing it. And if you listen to the underlying arguments, it's partially because people say, you're taking my freedom away.
Right.
You're telling me, you're trying to control me. You're telling me what to do. And they're not looking at the bigger picture, because for them, if I let you tell me to wear a mask now, what are you going to tell me next? So they're going through this, and they've made a decision not to. And some of them got infected, and some of them have people around them who die and all that kind of stuff. And they have the opportunity to pivot. And some do make the change when they can, and some keep going. But that's just the nature of change. Sometimes chaos wreaks because people fear, if I put on a mask, you're going to tell me to do something else. You're taking my rights away from me. You're doing this. You're dictating to me. Some people don't like to be told what to do, and we take our chances. But yes, as you go along the way, the thing about change is, it's like a highway. There are a lot of exits you can get off on, and if you miss your exit, you can turn around and do it again. So you can adjust as you go along during change. Change is constant. It happens around us all the time. We go from night to day, from moon to sun to rain that is change. It's just because we don't look at it as change, but it is change. Life is not constant.
Life is not constant, it's ever changing. And I think one of the reasons too with change, one of the issues we have with change, we feel as if we're losing, as you stated, the power. but we don't have to lose power during change. We don't have to lose that power during change.
If you control your change journey,
Right.
you control it, because the thing is, you can dictate what you want and how you want it. That's what a plan is.
Right.
That's what a good plan is. An even better plan is not just when you put it on paper, but when you attach time to it. Because some of us can stay in the state of contemplation for a lifetime. You have to put time limits on things. You have to, and then you have to constantly work at it. It's like anything else. It's no different than, you know, we're in the middle of a pandemic. You look at people panic because some people didn't have a backup plan. We get up every day, we go to work, we work 9 to 5. We say, oh, well, we work 9 to whatever. We work on weekends. We say we can't go to our kids' play or PTA because we got to be at work. And work was the focus of everybody. But when the pandemic came, work was the first thing that was taken away from a lot of people.
Absolutely.
And part of it was because we got comfortable thinking work was always going to be there. And we never had a plan B. We couldn't survive because we never had a plan B. And if you think about it, some people earn and they spend right up to the last penny of what they earn, because there wasn't a contingency that said there was 1 week when I wasn't going to get a check and I would have something to fall back on. All of those are changes that are thrusted upon us and we're not ready for. You don't have to, none of us knew a pandemic was coming, but you don't have to know it's coming in order for you to be prepared. You're prepared just in case. It's no different than how we buy insurance. We don't plan to have an accident. We hope we don't have one. You buy it anyway. You buy life insurance. You hope you're not going to die anytime soon, but just in case, if you do, something's there to provide for your loved ones afterwards. Those are all events of change that you've planned for.
And can you just reiterate that again about the life insurance? Please just reiterate, because that's a change that most of us still have yet to implement. Purchasing life insurance.
Life change. Mm-hmm. People always say there are only two things in life that are guaranteed: taxes and death, because they're taxes even after death. And if you know that at some point death is going to happen, why wouldn't you buy a policy that when you're gone, you can handle it properly? Some people say, well, I don't want to buy a policy because everybody, no, you can make it so that the loved ones that depend on you now, when you're gone, they're not left to struggle. It is a change. You know, when we said earlier about the fact that growing up as a child, growing up, the loss of a loved one often bring a change that we become adults and fear change because that change was drastic. You have a father or a mother who's the only breadwinner in the house, they die and you struggle. Everything changed. Life became the worst. You encounter all kinds of stuff because somebody wasn't prepared. Life insurance is key. It is key because of the fact that death is guaranteed.
It is guaranteed. We don't know when, but it is guaranteed.
None of us leave here alive. We don't know when. It is guaranteed. And it is almost guaranteed that you're going to leave somebody behind you that depend on you. Mm-hmm. Be prepared. That's a change that you can control. That's an uncertainty that you can control. People say, if I die, what's going to happen to my children? You know what's going to happen to your children? Leave a life insurance policy, leave it in such a way that it is carefully crafted. Put your policy in a trust if you have to. It's a simple document. Mm-hmm. So, well, I don't want people to rob there are ways to do it. There are ways to do it that your loved ones are protected after you, that change, that is guaranteed. Death is a guaranteed change. Leave your loved ones insurance that those who depend on you can continue to live without a drastic change. They're already living with the change of losing you. Mm-hmm. Don't let them have to live with the change of losing everything else.
Amen. And this has been a very great teaching session, and we have a couple more minutes. So before we wrap up, is there anything else that you would like to say to the audience in reference to change, especially to those who are stagnant, know the change, have identified the change, but of course, because of the fear of the unknown, the fear of the risk, the fear of the uncertainty, just cripple themselves from actually taking the actions into implementing those change?
Change is a good thing.
Mhm.
We always view change as something bad because in a lot of instances, change comes as a result of something negative.
Right.
Change can be a very good thing. Even when negative things happen, how you use those lessons and how you use those moments and how you use that hurt can make change a good thing. There is no reason to stay stagnant. There is no reason to be crippled by fear, because what you have done when you become crippled by fear and be afraid of change, you have robbed yourself of great opportunities. You've robbed yourself of great learning experience. Life is not a destination. You're not just going to get up one day and say, that's it, I'm here, I've arrived. Life is a journey. There are going to be great seasons in your life. There are going to be sad seasons in your life. There are going to be highs. There are going to be valleys. And some days you're going to be on a mountaintop. But take it all together. Anticipate change. Plan for it. Work with it. Understand that everything is not going to be easy, but develop the support, develop the wellness, eliminate the negative from around you. You can't bring everybody with you. Some people you're going to have to leave at one of the stops along the highway. But just know, if you manage change properly with a good plan, stay focused, and learn how to learn maintenance of change, because change is constant, it can be an awesome experience and a great learning opportunity. One you can use for yourself and one you can share for generations to come. It is said, if you want to live forever, teach others something.
Great. And as you're giving those words of encouragement, all I could hear in my ear is your uncle, Elder Singh, saying, and when life throw you lemons, make lemonade instead. Don't sit
Make the best lemonade.
Right. That's all I could hear. Thank you so very much for sharing on Moving Forward Talk. Dr. Wilson, it was a pleasure to have you. And I'm sure, because I'm going through a bit of change myself. So there are a lot of things that were said that I have implemented and I will continue to implement, because as we all know, change is continuous. So as I am going through, it's like right now, honestly, because I like to be transparent, so I like to give a little self-disclosure. Right now, I'm playing what we call tag of war. Should I continue moving forward on this path with my change? Should I reevaluate and take, but no, I cannot be motivating others to reduce their limitation. And then here I am using all the limitation I can to hinder me from moving forward. And again,
it's a human nature. It's a human thing, but at least you're going through the process.
Going through the process.
I'm sure when you finished your process of evaluation and implementation and learning, you will figure out, and sometimes by the time we get there, we're too far gone into the process of change that it really doesn't matter anymore, but you will get there. And like I said, I'm about advocating for others. I'm a support system for whoever need a support system. So I'm always just one call away.
I appreciate that. I do appreciate that. And until next week, this has been Moving Forward Talk with Diana.